Welcome to the Nice Business Podcast with your hosts, me, Jim Bob Howard, a veteran technical consultant, and my good friend, business and leadership consultant, and Visage CEO Peer Advisory Chair, Richard Train of Richard L. Train Consulting. Together, we have more than 60 combined years of business experience. The purpose of this podcast is to have short but meaningful discussions about the people and culture side of business and how owners and executives can be both kind and successful.
Thanks, Jim Bob. Just wanted to say I'm very excited to have Jason Bronstad, the CEO of MALK Organics, with us today. And Jason, I'm going to go through just a brief rundown of who you are and what the company is. And we had a previous conversation about 5 years ago, you took over as CEO because this family-run organization realized that they needed some seasoned vets to come in and help to scale. And so that's why you came in. And the issues that any company would have when they're trying to scale, when you have kind of done things a certain way, can be significant. And from dealing from the people and culture side of things, I knew you had some growing pains. I would love to have you kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of what happened when you came in and took over.
Yeah, thank you, Jim Bob Howard and Richard Train. Thank you so much for allowing me to come in and just have a chat with you. It's exciting to talk about a brand that is becoming well-known. And I say becoming because we're not there yet. And when I had the opportunity to step in almost 5 years ago, really, we saw the vision. We saw where people were going with regards to plant-based milks. And MALK stood alone in being organic, clean, simple ingredients. And we needed to get into more stores. We were in just over 1,000 stores. I think we're in 1,250 stores back in the fall of 2020. And it was in the middle of COVID, right? There were challenges. We were self-manufacturing. And we had to take a step back and say, okay, we know where we are today. We know where we believe we can get. And how do we transition to get there? And it's never a one-step process. It's never the easy button. Right? Everyone wants to Staples easy button, like boop, boop, done. I'm there. And it never happens that way. And guess what? One of my favorite sayings with my board is paper never refuses ink. So any plan we put on paper was inevitably going to be wrong. But we had to make the steps towards the ability to grow. And as I stepped into the business, we had the vast majority of our products that we self-manufactured. And it was an HPP process. So we had a very short shot clock. We had a shelf life of 45 days once we put it in the bottle. And it had to be at distributors across the country because we were globally distributed at Whole Foods with 36 days of shelf life left. That was a guarantee. I'm sure that people are sitting there going, oh, wait a second. You've got 9 days to put it in the bottle, process it, and get it across the country to DCs with delivery appointments and everything else, less than truckload shipments, no problems. Oh, by the way, we also co-packed our oat line that we were launching into at that time. So we had some with longer shelf life, some with shorter shelf life. We had some shipping from different locations. So we had a lot to work on. So we had to sit in and truly draw out the plan. And that plan for us to be able to scale really meant that we had to go and co-manufacture our product. We had to have a longer shelf life. We had to have a shot clock that allowed us to work with more retailers because we had incredible partners from the jump with Whole Foods. And with our short shelf life, we had the ability to connect with the consumer to validate that what we were launching is what consumers wanted. And having only like our unsweet almond is water, organic almonds, and pink Himalayan salt. We have 3 ingredients. We have to dial it precisely in order to have the taste profile that actually lands with consumers that they're looking for. We don't have the easy button of the gums, oils, fillers, emulsifiers that other brands put in there. Like, oh, we can make this easy. We just throw all this other stuff into it, and it's easy button. So guys, it took us a minute. It took us almost a year before we were able to go to retail with a co-manufactured product.
That presents its own set of issues, as I'm sure that you probably had to encounter and still maintain the quality that you required. So why didn't you just do that? Why didn't you just go the emulsifiers and all the other things to make it more shelf stable and maybe keep the flavor profile, but make it to where it was easier for you?
Yeah, we had a clear point of differentiation and we still do. We are the only brand that is not willing to sacrifice. Our consumers spoke loudly.
Yeah.
They said, we like this brand because there are none of the other additives in there. And we needed to maintain true to who we are from the jump. That was a non-negotiable. We are an organic, simple ingredient, plant-based product. Hard stop.
So say what that did. Talk a little bit more about what that did as far as the stressors to you, because that clearly, you had some big hurdles to jump, and that's stressful. So talk a little bit more about your team and what were the results of that.
Yeah, so as we turned the clock into 2021, we'd gotten down to half a dozen people that worked with us as FTEs, and then we had hourly employees in our plant because we continued to self-manufacture for most of 21. And with a half dozen FTEs, you become a jack of all trades. You start to do stuff you never thought you would do. I mean, I was signing every payroll check run. I'm living in Austin. All the employees are in Houston. I'm, FedExing checks over. One time I had to drive the checks over because I got the check run late. So I had to drive it over so our hourly employees got paid on time. But every step that we took, we made sure that we understood who was on the team, what they were doing, how they were contributing, and what made them unique, right? What was the skill set that this human was bringing to the organization that allowed us to continue to grow and expand?
Yeah, yeah. And for those who don't know, anywhere else in the world, Texas is a large state, so driving the checks from Austin to Houston is nothing short of 3 hours without traffic. So anyway, as you were saying, sorry.
Well, that's a podcast or two heading over there and back. So it's no stone for a stepper. I grew up in Texas. I'm a 5th generation Texan. My kids are 6th generation Texan. We're used to the drive, so that's a hill worth crossing to make sure that you take care of your people. And that's what it comes down to, is ensuring that our team knew that we were there to ensure that they were taken care of. And the more that we leaned into them and took care of them, it pays back tenfold. We were having very transparent conversations. I mean, as I was looking for investors to fund into the expansion plan that I had, there was a point that I had a phone call with the full-time employees. I said, hey, as it stands right now, I've got enough in the checking account for 2 payrolls if we don't get funded. I wasn't hiding from them. It was the honest truth. This is what we have. And fortunately, obviously, we were able to get the funding. They bought into the change and said, yeah, absolutely. Let's go do this. And we leaned into it. We took our products all the way through consumer panels. We had, I don't even remember the number of formulation dials that we were just trying to get it micro dialed in so that we could deliver to consumers a transparent switchover.
Wow. So, and now you were down to half a dozen. You started with how many?
So, of full-time employees, there were 15 that were in the company when I came in, and then there were hourly employees for the plant. We took it down to 6, and then as we started to grow, we started to understand what were the needs that we had. We had to have the foundations in operations, so most of my full-time employees to begin with were in operations. We had some consultants supporting us on the sales and marketing side. And, with that, we were able to get through our transition year of 2021. And then in late 21, I started to bring in the first iteration of marketing leaders and sales leaders into the company. So there was, it was a bit of a Hail Mary. It's like, hey, we have what we believe could be a rocket ship. And I put my selling shoes on. I came from the sales side of the world, and I had conversations with some great humans that joined us early on and said, this is where we envision this company going. And with your support, we can get there. So we had people join us in November of 21 on marketing, December of 21 on sales, and we turned the corner into 22 and we started to lean into it. And guess what people started doing right away? They started upgrading their own teams. They said, okay, I see what you've handed me, and I think we can do better. So when you have strong leaders that step in and say, I think we can do better when we do this, as a leader, you have to say, I trust you, go do the job.
That's great. That's great. So you basically trusted your people. So you hired the right people, then you trusted the right people to be able to build. Now, did you have any kind of a cohesive plan that you worked on together so it would be sort of not seamless, but consistent throughout the different departments?
Absolutely not. It was chaos. I would love to say, yeah, there's a beautiful plan. It went exactly the way I wanted it to. We did it exactly as we said. The reality is, when you're in that stage of growth, you make the changes you need to make when you need to make them.
I think that's a very important point. And the reason why I asked that, I was hoping you would say, that you had a plan, but still, the simple fact is, I think that's very common that most people, when they are growing, they don't really have it all together. And I appreciate your honesty, being able to say, no, it was chaos, because I think that a lot of people live in that. And being able to still grow, I think, at least in my opinion and what I've seen in other companies, is when you trust your people and they know that you have their back and they have your trust, then great things can happen. So anyway, so proceed. I apologize for the interruption.
No, you're absolutely spot on. I could sit here and, stand on high and mighty and say, yeah, we had a perfect plan that we executed. We had an intent of where we wanted to go, and we had to find the puzzle pieces that allowed us to get there. I'll never forget when I told the sales people that, at the time, the individual contributors that were in the organization in December of 21, which was my first all hands meeting. And I said, we're going from this revenue to this next revenue, which was almost a doubling of the business. The shock and bewilderment on their eyes, like, we're going to do what? It's like, actually, yeah, we are going to go do that. And we're going to go find a way. You have to set a vision out there, and you have to make it believable in a way that the people are willing to go chase it. Salespeople love challenges. They do. And they also love autonomy. So don't tell them where you're going and then tell them exactly how to get there. When you hire the right hunters in the sales organization, they're going to go find a way to go get it done.
How do you get your operations folks though to kind of jump into that same mindset, right? Like, so you've gone from 15 down to 6, mostly operations on your FTE side, and you've just said, hey, we're going to double what we did, and we have less people less than half of what we had. We've hired some folks, to help us get there, but I'm still looking at that as from an operations perspective, like, so death march is what you're asking me to do. Right.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Exactly.
Here's the good news. What I inherited, I did have an operator at the head of operations that I inherited. That was a seasoned veteran that had done this before.
Nice.
And with that knowledge and that trust and respect, understanding where we were going, it's like, no, we can get there. And it was a partnership. It was what do we need to do? How much time do you need to get there? And again, it took us almost 9 months to get the formulation right. It wasn't, hey, I'm stepping in on day 1, and then on day 30, we're doubling the business. It is, here is the progression that we're going to in year 1, in year 2, in year 3. What do we need to do to build out to get that? So we did, on the operations side, we were a little more tactical on what it took to get there, understanding, the minimums and the requirements and any limitations of our partners that helped to guide where we went to. So that was a partnership that was crucial to have a good operator early on.
Well, and we talked earlier too about you're hiring the right people and trusting them, but you're coming into a place where these guys have got to trust you. How'd you get there?
Transparency, right? It's laying the cards on the table. It's, the agenda is simple. We're going to deliver on the potential of this business, and it's going to take us a while to do it. And it's going to be methodical in the way that we grow. And there's going to be pains. There's going to be joyous moments. We're going to celebrate when we can celebrate. But as most startups do, the reality is we're burning cash. We are out here burning our investors' equity. And what do we owe them? We owe them a return on that equity.
Sure. Yeah. So you went down to 6, and where are you now as far as your staff?
We're in the low 40s right now.
Okay. And I'm kind of curious. So when you're growing, you're having to kind of reinvent a lot of your internal processes and systems. So tell me a little bit more about that, about the growth of those systems and really kind of figuring out the way that this new staff is going to work, your internal systems.
Yeah. So, I mean, going to the core system, our CRM is QuickBooks Desktop, guys. We are going all in on the oldest school possible. We're not on any fancy system. And first thing we had to do is clean up, guys. We had to get it to the point that we could get rid of the noise from the past. We had brought in one of our earlier hires in March of 21, actually, was a corporate controller. And in conversations with her, she's like, hey, I need to clean this up so we can actually get good reporting, good data, good understanding of what's going on. So that was really the first 6 to 9 months of her job, was to get us into a point where our data gave us insights to be able to act upon. It helped us to understand our opportunities and margin and scaling. So it's a step-by-step process. So we had to get that right first. We had to continue to evaluate as we looked at margin opportunities, who our partners were. So the processes, Richard, that we were leaning into started with operations and finance. And then as we started to build the momentum, we started to say, okay, now we need data. We need data for our sales team to go sell. And I never said no when the sales team came to me with a reasonable data request. So we started to build that muscle behind category. What is the data selling? What are consumers saying? How do we take this message as we go from 2021 to 2022 and doubling the business? How do we turn around and give us the opportunity to go double this business again? That's a lot going on at one time. We're still on G Suite, guys. We're still on Google email addresses. And it took one of the internal leaders to say, hey, we've got to go to Microsoft. We need to make this transition. Now, this was one of my many mistakes. I said, okay, cool. If you think we need to do that, I don't have time. I'm managing the board. I'm the acting CFO at the time, and we've got this other stuff going. You go do that. We did that over like New Year's Eve, and we lost email for 3 days. It was not a good idea to not bring in an expert. Yeah, no problem at all. We're trying to close out the year. No problem at all. And it was one of those things that really helped me as I've transitioned, that was going into 23 as we're approaching 26 now, over the last 3 years, to truly value to have the right partners to help with big shifts. So while we were in QuickBooks Desktop for quite a while, we have transitioned to QuickBooks Online, and we implemented some operation software add-ons to help with that in the process. It's bringing in the right people to help us implement processes. I was de facto HR for a while with the controller. And as I evolved, I brought in the right external HR partner to help us with people processes. We've evolved and brought in IT partners to help us with IT processes. The reality is that those of us that I built around the table, none of us were experts in those things, but we were playing those roles until we got to the scale that we could afford to bring in and upgrade those. Each one of those have to bring in the true experts at the right time.
Sure. So if you were able to speak to yourself 5 years ago, what would you have told yourself to do, other than buy Apple stock or something like that?
NVIDIA stock, I think, is what
NVIDIA stock, yeah. Right.
Yeah, 5 years ago, I should have bought that.
Sorry, that's a dated reference.
Yeah, dated reference on that one. And, at the end of the day, gentlemen, I was so tight on the purse strings that I made my team work a lot harder to do the simple things instead of finding the expert to help us. I can't count the number of LinkedIn posts that we made for job hiring and the resumes that we went through instead of going to a recruiter. The time that we lost on more important projects because I'm like, oh no, we're gonna save $15,000 to go post this way. As a microcosm of an example, one of the best decisions I made was have a third party that helped us with our innovation. I was fortunate to find the right one early on, and we've partnered with them ever since. So, sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut. We found a great partner, and that has helped us as we've continued to innovate. Because I took us down to 3 SKUs, and we have 14 now.
Yeah.
So I went from 14 SKUs at a very low revenue down to 3 SKUs, and now I've 9x the revenue in the last 5 years. It's given us the opportunity to expand and truly develop into who we are and where we believe we deserve to be.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And you're still manufacturing in Houston?
No, that was part of the transition as we built a co-manufacturing network to give us national scale. We have moved out of the Houston operations in November of 21.
Okay. All right. Good. So you're able to cover more quicker.
Correct.
Excellent. Excellent. Wonderful. So yeah, now this is going to sound like an interview question, so forgive me, but basically it's kind of an interview. But if I were to talk to one of your longer serving staffers, not C-suite, but staffers, what do you think that they would say is one of the best things that you did to help with the culture during all of this, change in the organization?
So one of the biggest impacts that I continue to hear from the team, I was fortunate enough to bring in has become a friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Dane Espegard. I brought him into my first team meeting in December of 21, and he wrote a book called The Dream Machine. And if my backpack was closer, I'd pull my dream journal out of it right now and show you. At that point, I'm enrolled for coming up on just past a year, and I spend 4 hours of our all hands meeting in December saying, what are your dreams? What do you want to do? We all come to work for a reason. And it's not because everyone wants MALK to be a wild success. You have your personal dreams. You have your travel dreams, your adventure dreams, your material possessions, your career objectives. What is it that you want to accomplish as a human? And how can we, as a company, help you to celebrate those? Very early on, we had a team member that said, I would like to be able to sell my art. An aspiring budding artist. You know what we did in that meeting? We commissioned her to draw 3 pieces of art for our Houston office. So when you actually ask the team what matters to them as humans, and then we have my favorite Slack channel is Dreams Wins. One of our newer team members that joined last year shared a dream that her son wanted to go see Messi play. So, that she's like, oh yeah, we're going to go see Messi. And I still have one-to-ones with each of the team members at varying frequencies, but she shared that with me. And I reached out to her boss and said, hey, this person's going to make it a day trip. Why don't you just make this something really special? Let's take care of the hotel. Let's take care of dinner. Let's go make this big. And when they shared the pictures of them and their son at this game, the just sheer joy, the excitement, like that's why we work. It's not to pay back the investors. It's to fulfill people's lives. And if we can make that a core principle of what we do here at MALK Organics, then the results will come. But if we just make it about MALK, guess what? My churn is going to be just going down the tank.
That's one of the best things I've heard you say. I absolutely love the idea of asking folks what their dreams are, because you're right. Everyone shows up at MALK as from different places, and they've got different places they want to go and different things they want to do. They're different stages of life. They're at different stages of family. They're different stages of trying to get an art career going, being able to fulfill a dream for one of their kids, and just recognizing that and being able to spend the time and say, what are your guys' dreams? Like, there's nothing off the table. I want to hear what they are, right? I can't fulfill them all. I can't make you do them all, but we want to be the team that gets behind you to help you fulfill that dream. I think is just huge, absolutely huge.
Well, and when you think about it, I think that we're all of a similar mindset, that work should be more than just transactional. You pay me, so I give my time to you, and I push buttons, or I push things around in a warehouse floor or whatever. It needs to be something more than just going somewhere and doing stuff. Because when you think about it, you spend so much more of your life at a job, and you want it to be really something that you feel confident and proud of. So I think that was just beautiful, and I wish more companies would do something like that. So in light of that, since this podcast is really all about, like I said before, doing business the right way, you don't have to be a tyrant. You really want your people to grow with you so they can help you grow. What would you tell other CEOs or business leaders or business owners for something that you learned in your time at MALK?
Find out what's important to your broader population and lean into it. What became very apparent as we were doing the Dreams Wins, where a lot of people had aspirations to be healthier. They wanted to work out more. They wanted to have access to gyms. So one of the decisions I made a few years ago is we leaned into WellHub, which was formerly Gym Pass. And, there's options you can go in at the entry level. And I took us up to the bronze level. So there's a significant investment each month that we are making for our employees that they can go work out anywhere. So it was such an overwhelming focus on health and wellness that it's what can we do to make sure that we're giving our team that opportunity. I've got team members now, I've got almost a dozen people in the sales organization. They're traveling across the country. Guess what they're using when they're traveling? They're using Gym Pass to be able to catch that gym. I've got team members that are located in the same area that are choosing to go to the same fitness classes together to build their own community with each other. It's important to them, so it better be important to me. If I don't make it important to me, then I'm not listening, and all of a sudden I'm just that tyrant that's like, go get this number. So you have to have the human to human connection. You have to lead with the human to human connection. If you miss that part, you're not going to have a business.
No, and they will do so much more than you ask them to, as a result, because they feel valued and seen. So I think that's beautiful. I hope so too, and that's general. I'm sure that's generally the case. I know that's generally the case, but no, that's beautiful. I think that I'm sure your people really see that, and hopefully, we've been able to really have some meaningful pearls of wisdom for other business leaders out there, and maybe some people who are listening to this who are not business leaders yet, but they hopefully one day will be, or they can bring it back to their companies and make these suggestions. I think that's really what we're here to do. So, I just want to thank you for being on with us, Jason. Wishing MALK continued success and growth, and it's leaders like you that really help conversations like this to thrive, and I appreciate you coming on.
Guys, thanks for the opportunity to share about what we believe makes MALK special, and we have the opportunity and the obligation to continue to support our teams.
That's wonderful. Well, and for those listening out there to this episode of the Nice Business Podcast, if you want to learn how to keep your business nice, keep tuning in for more fantastic information. Thanks to Jason Bronstad, and on behalf of Jim Bob Howard and myself, Richard Train, thank you for listening.